Hey everybody, welcome back to Five Boys in a Business, podcast where we talk about our business, our family, and all the many shenanigans involved. You can catch us on any of the podcast channels, right? So YouTube, Spotify,
Google Podcasts.
And today we're fortunate enough to have special guests back in because the bunker is now open. So, and we have Bobby Cox with us today. I'm Emily King.
I'm Richie King.
And I'll turn it over to Richie so you can read his bio so everybody can know a little bit about him before we start.
A little bit about Bobby. Bobby began his role as the 8th commissioner of the Indiana High School Athletic Association in 2011. Prior to that appointment, he had served as assistant commissioner since 2000, administering the sports of football, boys golf, boys and girls track and field, and wrestling. Prior to joining the IHSAA, Bobby spent the previous 21 years as a teacher, coach, and athletic administrator in the Carmel Clay school system. He served as athletics and activities director at Clay Junior High from 1990 to 1997 and as the athletic director at Carmel High School from 97 to 2000. At Carmel High School, his responsibilities included the management of 54 athletic teams and 97 coaches who annually served more than 1,100 student athletes. During his tenure as Carmel High School Athletics Director, he served as the host administrator for numerous IHSAA tournament events, including the cross-country and softball state finals. Bobby is a 1975 graduate of Carmel High School, where he participated in cross-country and track and field. He earned a bachelor's degree in physical education and health from Butler University in 1979 and a master's degree in secondary education from Butler in 1987. Cox and his wife, Kathy, the former athletic director at Clay Middle School, reside in Warsaw. Welcome, Bobby Cox.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as people know, people who watch the podcast know, I've talked about you before on the podcast because you were so influential when I was growing up. And so I can't remember what the topics were, but you had come up in conversation in the podcast. And then my dad had said, you need to really reach out and see if Bobby will be on the podcast. And so then that's when I, of course, emailed you to see if you'd be on. So we're super excited to have you here today. I had Bobby as a coach in junior high. So back in the day, Clay Junior High that's what we called it, Clay Junior High. I guess it's Clay Middle now, or I don't know. They've changed it.
It's still Clay Junior High in my mind.
Okay. They had 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade all in the same school. So, and back then, 9th graders, cross country was the only sport we were allowed to play up, like for high school. So we could not play basketball up. I was going through this with Richie on a drive yesterday. And so as freshmen, we were our own team.
Right.
I don't know how long that lasted.
Not very long. I mean,
that?
Shortly after that, then they started allowing freshmen to move up.
Yeah.
But they still maintained freshman teams. And then it was probably maybe 5 years or so after that, then they just took the freshmen to the high school. And when I got to the high school as athletic director, the freshmen were already there.
Okay, got it. And did you, when you went to school at Carmel High School, could you have ever imagined it'd be what it is now?
No. It's if you had tomorrow's newspaper, you'd be a genius. But
right.
When I went to high school in the 70s, Carmel was a farm community. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I moved here in '67, there was one stoplight in town.
Wow.
Range line in Maine. Wow. That was it. One stoplight.
Yeah.
And we actually drove through cornfields to get to church. Down Range Line Road to 106th Street. And of course the community's changed dramatically and become a bedroom community for the Indianapolis area, and the growth and the development has been astronomical. Folks that I went to school with who left town and have not been back, when they finally come back, they don't even recognize the town.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's
I remember when we used to go play games and we would go to Westfield, we thought we were driving somewhere, or
yes.
Noblesville. Even then when we were in high school in the 80s, it still felt like you were traveling to. Now it's like it's just a skip away. There's no.
No, the communities blend together. There's no. You can't hardly tell you when you're in one and going to the next one.
Yeah.
If there weren't a sign there, you wouldn't even know it.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So did you run for Keppen? I can't remember. Was Keppen there?
I did. I ran on Chuck Keppen's first team at Carmel High School in 1972.
Okay.
Wow. All that does is just tell you how old I am and how old he is.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, he came from Wapahani High School. and came to Carmel in the fall of '72. And this was back when freshmen were not in the high school.
Right.
So my sophomore year, that was the youngest group of kids in the school. And Coach Keppen came that summer, fresh off the Olympic trials. He had run in the marathon in the Olympic trials in Eugene.
Okay.
And came and became our coach. He was 20-some years old at that time. And we had never been out of the sectional in cross country. Made it to the regional that first year. And then my junior year, we were 5th in the state. And in my senior year, we were 11th. We had some injuries and some illnesses. And then the next year, they didn't get to the state. And then they won the next 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So the dynasty was on its way then. And
Yeah.
So, but I remember those days fondly. It was great fun. You learned a lot about yourself, and you learned about perseverance, and you learned a lot about toughness and how to compete, and you learned a lot of life lessons that you took with you as you left high school. And we try to do those say those same things today, is that high school sports provides you opportunities that you might not get in the normal classroom. And so that for me was a lesson that I learned way back when, and it's been helpful all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that Keppen was another, because I ran for him as well, was very influential in how we approached the sport. And I think that, it was interesting because I had you as a coach, and then you coached boys track, I think, right? But
That's correct.
You coached also cross country. We were kind of mingled together for cross country. And there were so many things, my poor boys, like when I'm preaching to them, about things that you would say to me, like, when we would be deciding whether or not we should be at practice. I remember clearly there was one time where you had talked about you can either choose to go shopping or you can choose to come to practice. One's going to make you better, basically. Those types of expectations about how to further yourself, as an athlete.
Sure.
And so, anyway, I got to get out this one picture because I was showing Richie
Oh,
the other day. So, yes, in the scrapbook, my scrapbook, which is hilarious. But this does tell you a lot, I think, about who you are. And I'm not surprised how far you've gone, in your career, because even as a youngster coaching girls, nonetheless, you were very dedicated to making sure that we had every opportunity that the boys had. You made sure of it. There was never a time where we did not feel like we were less because we were girls. And even to this day, I think I still feel that way because that's how I was treated as a youngster. So even when people talk about, I feel like I'm not presented the same, I never felt that way ever throughout any of my my sporting career when I was growing up. But you were so meticulous even then. You had spreadsheets, that you had.
The score sheets.
The score sheets, yep. And then
that's good stuff.
I have to show you this picture. So this is what I wrote. Okay, here's a picture of you. Okay.
Oh, my.
Okay, I'll turn it around and show everybody else. But look what I wrote. I put, our great coach, Mr. Cox, very friendly, but can become disturbed sometimes, as shown in the picture. And I remember the foot stomping. See this?
Yeah.
Harrison, can you see this picture?
Show that camera right in front of you.
This one right here? Okay. There you go. And, man, it was great the way you coached us. And, you held our feet to the fire, but you were very respectful about doing so, but you didn't let us get away with it.
Well, I've always felt like if you're going to participate in any activity, whether it be a sporting activity or you're going to be in a club or you're going to be in the band or you're going to be in the debate team, whatever it is, you need to give 100%. If you're not going to do that, then you're really just cheating yourself. And I felt that way as a teacher and as a coach. If you're not going to give 100% when you're in the classroom, if you're not going to give 100% when you're on the court or you're out on the cross-country field or track or whatever it is, if you're not out there doing the best you can, then you're really cheating everything. And I felt it didn't matter if you were 13 years old or you were 23 years old. You just have to take that attitude if you want to be successful, if you want to progress and go to the highest levels that your ability will allow you to go to. And so I felt like that when I was coaching girls basketball or coaching boys cross country or boys track. it didn't really matter. Or in my professional life, whether I was teaching or coaching or when I went to the association administering high school sports, you need to do the best you can. And if you give your best effort, you walk away from the day and you feel like you've done as well as you can do, then that's what you do, and then you strap them on and you go again tomorrow.
Yep, exactly, absolutely. So you ran at Butler, right?
I did run at Butler. I was very fortunate. I left Carmel High School in '75 and went to Butler and ran all 4 years in cross country and track. Had a great coach in Stan Lyons, who's left us now. But Coach Lyons was NCAA pole vault champion at Ohio State. Came to Butler in the early 60s as a coach. Was there when I was there and coached well after, and then passed away with cancer while I was teaching. And just a great coach. And when I tell the story between my high school coach and my college coach, most people get them confused. They think Keppen was my college coach because he was the driving, competitive force. And Coach Lyons was really laid back. And you think, well, that was probably your high school coach. Well, it's just the opposite. Coach Keppen was the driver and my high school coach, and he taught you some lessons. Coach Lyons also taught lessons, but he taught them in a different way. And what I always remember about Coach Lyons, and I like to share with people, is that we had practice once a day in college. Once a day. If you want to get better, it's up to you. Well, you knew that you weren't going to compete if you only ran once a day. But that was on you. We practiced at 2:30 in the afternoon every day. That was it. So if you wanted to get better, you either ran in the morning or you ran after practice. And many times we do both.
Right.
But you did it on your own. And it taught you discipline. It taught you self-discipline. It taught you that notion of if you want to get better and you want to compete in this arena, you got to take some responsibility for yourself. It's not all on coach.
Right.
It's not all on the school. And so that experience of how Coach Lyons taught his students and coached his teams was really valuable for me. And it was a good lesson to move forward. And I tried to instill that on the kids that I got a chance to coach was, we can have practice, and we're going to work hard in practice, but practice is going to end in 2 hours. And that's up to you. If you want to be a better free throw shooter, you got a driveway. There's an outdoor gym somewhere, court somewhere.
Yep.
Go shoot yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be with you every hour of the day. You got to do it on your own. And so I think if you can learn that lesson and be self-disciplined enough to do those things, then I think you have success in your future.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big takeaway points that you can then, like you say, transfer over to whatever you're doing in your life. Even the people here at the clinic, that's something that we talk about here quite frequently is, we want to be the best that we can be. Well, that requires you to, go out and learn on your own how to be better, how to be a better business person, or how to be a better veterinarian, or, whatever it is that your scope of responsibilities are within the walls of the clinic. Don't you really want to be the best at it?
Right.
Otherwise, I'm like, what are you doing then? Like, why are we doing what we're doing if we're not trying to be the best at what we're doing?
And it's interesting too, because to your point, I think that has so many other cross applications, and I hear people talk a lot about how you really if that's the height of your ambition, that's okay. Just accept that that's the height of your ambition. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So if you're okay, being in that lane, that's fine. But if you want to be greater, then take charge of it and then make it happen.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you over the course of your career, over the course of your activities, you kind of find that lane.
Sure.
And there are leaders and there are followers, and you got to have them both. And subsequently, you learn through your experiences. Your education experience, your career experiences of where you fit in that continuum. And it takes a village to run the show. And so that you learn those things through your experiences, whether it be athletics or your academics or you played in the band or you whatever you did, you learn how to fit in and how to lead and how to move forward. And then those things are passed off to your family, to your friends, your colleagues, and it's just part of the life cycle.
Yeah.
Grandmom said we are listening.
Okay, my mom is listening.
Outstanding.
She's finally made it to a live podcast.
Okay, yeah, this has been a challenge for them sometimes. Is this our first live podcast? Harrison Branch?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It's funny. I think about a book I read years ago by Rick Pitino, and the title of the book was Success is a Choice. And I remember reading that book, and it was a bit of a sea change in my mind, because it's like you have to choose to succeed, but it's a conscious choice to be better. And he talked in there a lot about his experience as a basketball coach, and how he would always tell his players that you may not be the most talented, you may not have the most experience, but your work ethic is what you choose it to be.
Right.
So I mean, you can outwork everybody.
Right.
I mean, and bridge that gap, but you have to make a conscious choice to do that.
Yes, absolutely. I read the same book, and one of the takeaways I got from the book was when you're organizing your day, do the thing you least want to do first.
Yeah.
I remember that in the book. You start thinking about, you got to make that tough phone call.
Yeah.
Do it at 8 o'clock.
Right.
Get it over with. Don't wait till 3:30 in the afternoon to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. I live by that motto.
All right.
Do the toughest surgery first. Do the toughest phone call first. Yeah.
But those kinds of books are so empowering, because they do give you a roadmap to be able to say, oh, I can do these things. It's not just up to circumstance or chance. So.
Right. Exactly.
So
Kevin,
go ahead.
Sorry. Kevin Self said, watching the podcast while doing my work, and then Grandmom said, wrong, not the first. We were guests there, so we were on a live podcast.
There you go.
There you go.
So, with going from teaching, coaching to the IHSAA, like that entire trajectory,
Right.
is that what you thought you were going to be doing?
No.
What did you think you
I
probably
thought I was going to be a cross-country coach my whole life. I thought I was going to replace Coach Keppen. That was my goal.
Okay.
I was going to, I worked in the junior high system, and I helped him out with the camps and so forth. And, I was a 31-year-old teacher coach.
Yeah.
And Dick Landis was our athletic director.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Landis retired. He'd been the only athletic director in the history of the school.
All right.
And I was a 31-year-old teacher coach. I really liked coaching. And I really liked teaching in the classroom. But I didn't like teaching in the gym. I didn't like physical education. I don't know why, and it was my major.
Right.
But I got stagnant with it, and I just thought, there's got to be more to this than this.
Right.
And so when Mr. Landis announced his retirement, I thought, well, I can either apply for this job, or I can be a PE teacher when I'm 60 years old. I thought, I don't think I want to do that.
Right.
So I applied for the job and got the job. And so, Bob Tile was our principal, and Mr. Tile, he hired me as a teacher, and he had enough confidence in me to be the athletic director. And I did that for 7 years. I loved it. Probably of all the jobs I've had, might have been my favorite job, being the athletic director at the junior high. I tell a story all the time. Is I'd finish up with lunch duty, and I'd go out and get the baseball diamond or the softball diamond ready for play that afternoon.
Right.
We'd have a game, and I'd be out there dragging the diamond and, putting the lines on and all that. And I had a parent come up to me one day right before the game and said, Mr. Cox, there's a custodial staff that'll do that for you. I said, you know what? Dirt won't talk back to you. And I'd go out there and drag that dirt and kick it and, put chalk on it and stick a base in. Dirt never said a word.
Right.
So I kind of like that 2.5 hours out there where you just kind of be by yourself and clear your brain a little bit. And that was a great job. And then when Eric Clark retired, Lee Lonzo was the athletic director, and he wanted to get into administration toward the principalship. And so he replaced Eric as an assistant principal, and I applied for the high school position at that time. And I'd thought about it once before, but Mr. Tile was still working. I told Mr. Tile that I would stay as athletic director at the junior high until he retired. He wouldn't have to go through that again. And so I did that. But then when Eric Clark retired and Lee became the assistant principal, I went to the high school. And I had thought at that point I was in my dream job. I wasn't going anywhere. That's where I was going to retire. And things happened. You mentioned that I got the chance to host the state cross-country meet and host the state softball tournament. And I got to know the folks at the IHSAA. And I think they probably thought I did a pretty good job at running those events. And so Bob Gardner became the chief operating officer at the National Federation. And Blake Rest was an assistant commissioner. And Blake was the administrator for softball. So that's how I got to know Blake. And he became commissioner. So the job opened up. And I got an application in my mailbox at the high school. This is in the old days. We didn't email anything. You got a paper application.
Paper copy, right.
And so I pulled this application out, and I thought one of two things. I thought, well, either somebody really wants me to go or somebody really wants to get rid of me. One or the other. I wasn't real sure. So I wandered over to Lee's office, and it was right next door to mine. And we, Bruce Wolf and Lee Lonzo and I shared this office suite. And I showed him this application. I said, you going to apply for this job at the IHSAA? He goes, nope, I'm going to be the principal at Carmel High School. I said, good for you. I said, I'm going to apply for the job. And I got an interview. I was the last guy to interview for the job. They had interviewed 6 people. And on paper, I had no chance of getting that job. None. They were board members, athletic directors of the year, principals of the year, superintendents. You know, I'd been an AD 3 years.
Right.
I didn't think there was a chance in the world I was going to get that job. So I'm working the state track meet, helping out the IHSAA. I'm working in the press box. And Blake Rest comes walking up the steps, and I'm the press box czar. I'm the guy that keeps all this riffraff out of the press box.
Right.
So I open the door and go, what do you want? And he's the new commissioner. He goes, let's talk. So he says, you really want this job? I said, well, I wouldn't be wasting your time or my time if I didn't want the job. Yeah, I'll take the job. He says, I'll call you Monday. So I think he went back to the board and asked them if he could hire me, and they said yes, and that was the beginning. That was in 2000.
Wow.
That was 20 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
Wow.
So what has been your favorite thing about being in that position?
Well, there have been a lot of favorite things. You know, we've in the last 9+ years I've been the commissioner, and that was when Mr. Rest retired. I replaced him as the commissioner. And there's been a lot of fun things. There's been a lot of we've made a lot of progress. You know, we've moved from a not a great technology presence to a very strong technology presence in those 20 years. In the last 9+ years, we've developed our Champions Network, which is our trioca of our television, internet streaming, and our radio network. I would prejudicially say it's the best television, radio, and internet network in high school sports in the country. We own it. We run it. We're not a part of any other network. It's our network. We control the content. We control the messaging. So it's been really rewarding to see that grow. Our partnership with Special Olympics Indiana that we developed when I became commissioner, where students with and without intellectual disabilities can participate together on a varsity team at a school and represent their high school. These youngsters that have intellectual disabilities, they love their high school just like kids in the regular ed classroom. They just don't have an opportunity to express it and show it.
Right.
And so our unified sports program allows that to occur, and our Champions Together program, where we try to change the culture in our schools of being more inclusive and more understanding, has been very rewarding. We started the IHSAA Foundation. It's the philanthropic arm of the IHSAA. It's the programming arm for education, teaching lessons to coaches about being transformational coaches and investing in young people. The old saying that you've got to make deposits into young people before you can make a withdrawal. Kids got to know you love them before they're going to play for you. And I've always thought that, and I've always felt like it was an opportunity for us to do something with the association and become an operation where we can give back to our member schools and give back to young people and create opportunities and scholarships and things of that nature. And we're in our 4th year, almost finishing our 4th year now, and the foundation's grown by leaps and bounds, and it's because of the great support we experience around the state, and it continues to grow, and I've been very proud of how that's gone. And so there are a lot of things that have happened there. The championships are great. You know, probably the most enjoyable part of the work is to go to the championships and see young people at the highest level participate, represent their school, and try to win a championship. And not all of them can do that.
Right.
Every team sport, there's going to be one winner and there's going to be one that didn't win. You go to the state track meet, there's going to be one kid that wins the 3,200,
right,
and there's going to be 27 others or 26 others that don't win it.
Right.
And it's been interesting study to watch how young people deal with that and how their coaches deal with it, how their families deal with it, and the support of that that whole enterprise of high school sports has been fun to watch, and it's been a great career. I've been very blessed.
Yeah, it's really neat to hear your perspective, on especially because we live in Indiana. I mean, the IHSAA, and you were talking earlier in the podcast before we started about kind of like the impact that everything that everybody's managing now with coronavirus and everything, and the impact that's had on everyone.
Sorry, keep going. But
No, go ahead.
I was going to tack on to that because we have a question from Kevin.
Yeah.
Exactly about that.
About
Sure.
what?
About COVID affecting
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
He said, Kevin Self asked, I'll ask the sports question. What do you see for the fall sports season starting on time? Spectators, question mark.
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. I've shared with many folks here in the last 30 days. We've been following the guidance of our governor and Dr. Chris Box, who's the Commissioner of Health, and Dr. McCormick, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and we've been trying to stay in concert with those guidance. And I'm cautiously optimistic. The plan that's rolling out, I've said to folks, if we want to have a triumphant return to fall sports, we've got to have a better summer. Mm-hmm. And that means we've got to continue to follow the guidance of the people that are the experts. And if our health department's telling us to stay away from folks, if our health department is continuing to wash your hands and do those types of things, then we need to keep doing that so that we can come back. I feel cautiously optimistic that we'll have some sports this fall. We have opened up, our schools will open up July 1st. That's obviously to local control, whether the school wants to open or not, but the state will allow that to occur. So we've waived our moratorium week this year. And usually that's a week where kids can get away. We don't have any activities in our school, but we've waived it since they've been away for so long.
Yeah, sure.
And so starting July 1, under the proper conditions, we're going to allow our schools to recongregate, and kids can start working out together again. Make sure that we're following the proper protocols that we need to. But I feel okay right now, but this is a moving target. The one thing I've also said is there's no playbook for this. This is something that's never happened in our generation. Mm-hmm. And so these directives, these guidance, these things that are coming to us are coming out weekly. Mm-hmm. And so you evaluate, you collaborate, you think about these things, and you do what you believe is in the best interest of student athletes, of our member schools, of our officials, our coaches, and our patrons. And I don't know the answer whether we'll have crowds or not. The last event we contested last winter was our state gymnastics final, and we did it without fans. We had all the girls on the floor at Ball State, nobody in the stands. Mm-hmm. They got a chance to compete. That was a great opportunity for them right toward the beginning of all of the quarantine. But who knows what it's going to look like in August and September. I hope we can play in front of some folks. I hope that happens. But if it doesn't, then we'll modify. And if the modification is we don't play, we don't play.
All right.
If the modification is we play in front of no crowds, then we'll try to do that. If it's a limited crowd, fine. We're fortunate in the fact that we've got some tremendous state championship venues. We could play the football tournament in Lucas Oil Stadium and spread everybody out 6 feet apart.
Right.
If we had to do that.
Right.
Now, I don't know how you play tackle football with 6 feet of social distancing. Right. I've not figured that one out yet. If somebody can tell me how to do that, then we might have something. But I've seen some defenses like that don't get within 6 feet of anybody. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's an ever-changing dynamic and landscape right now. And so I think for us to try to predict that is hard to do, but I'm optimistic.
So walk through how emotional or how difficult it was when I remember listening to you on the radio when you were talking about not having the boys high school basketball tournament, which I don't think has ever been not held, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
Originally it was that we weren't going to have fans, and then it went to we're not going to do it at all.
Right.
How much, because of an athlete yourself, How hard was that?
It was
that trigger?
One of the most difficult professional decisions that I ever had to announce.
Yeah.
It wasn't difficult to make the decision, but it was difficult to tell people that this is what we were going to do. We're in the games for kids business. That's what we do.
Right.
We're there to provide opportunities for kids to play and to play in championships. And we couldn't do it.
Right.
And it became obvious quickly. And I can remember having that press conference on Thursday announcing that we were going to proceed with the regional with limited crowd. And we had spent several hours as a staff trying to figure out what that would look like and having conversations with our regional hosts. And at that point, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Sure, yeah.
And it was evolving every hour.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And by Friday, we had the Big Ten tournament going on, and they were taking teams off the court. Mm-hmm. And as that started to unfold, it became obvious that we weren't going to be able to play. And for us to make that determination about noon on Friday, it was the hardest announcement I've ever had to make. It wasn't the hardest decision because I knew it was the right decision. I just didn't want to have to announce it. And I felt badly for our players and our schools and our communities. And a lot's been said about the seniors this year that didn't get to play that basketball tournament, and then our seniors that didn't get to play any spring sports. Mm-hmm. That's really hard to stomach because that's what we're here for, is to try to provide opportunities for kids. But you can't do it in an environment that's unhealthy and not safe. And so, I'm good. I'm comfortable with the decision. But I don't know that I'll ever get comfort with what happened.
All right.
And to your point, Emily, we've never not had a basketball tournament, ever, since 1913 or 12, whenever we started.
Right.
We even through the war years, we had a basketball tournament.
Right.
And for 2020 to not have a tournament was very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that just the state, because the state is what it is as far as that particular sport.
Yeah.
And so to just have to, felt like, oh gosh, to burden that decision and then to have the burden of that decision. And then, like you said, announcing it, knowing what that was going to mean for all these people.
Right.
I know it must have been very difficult. So, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see in retrospect kind of the breadth of the decision, the effect that it has. I mean, a couple years looking back and seeing, is it a blip or is it still,
Well, again, it's one of these unfolding situations. We don't know when we're going to have a vaccine. We don't know how many more folks will be infected. We don't know how many more deaths there'll be. We think we're flattening the curve. I think our governor feels like we're flattening the curve. We are in communication weekly with the governor's office and with the Department of Health, and we are monitoring this closely. We don't know what it'll be in 2 years, 5 years. What the new normal? I don't know what that really means. What does the new normal look like?
Right.
But I think that our lifestyle is going to change, and I think one of the things, our economy has obviously changed, and it's going to take a while for our economy to return. I think it's going to take a time for us to return to what we think is normal, and I'm not sure what the new normal looks like. Mm-hmm. But I think what it has done, it really speaks to the fragility of life. You go along and you don't even think about something like this happening, and then all of a sudden it happens with this enormity, and all of a sudden it makes you pause and think a little bit about the fragility of life and how precious it is and how short it is. Mm-hmm. And all the opportunities you've had in your life and all the good fortune you've had, it makes you appreciate things a lot more.
Yeah, I do think it slowed everybody down, and everybody, it seems like, run from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and it really, gave everybody an opportunity to slow down and, be invested in what they're, doing.
Oh, absolutely.
I think one of the things that struck me about the whole situation was, as a society, we always think we can control everything,
right?
And you control this, and then all of a sudden you have something like this hit completely out of your control, and Mother Nature still kind of calls the shots.
Absolutely.
So you don't control a whole lot, and we've been lucky insofar as that we've been able to at least have that kind of an illusion that you control everything until these kinds of events happen.
Right.
So
Right.
One of your messages that I think that you like to talk about is playing multiple sports in high school, not just one sport, but multiple sports.
Right.
Can you talk about why you think that's important and,
Well,
the
I think
benefits
the variety of sports keeps kids fresh. We know there's many studies out now that speak to multiple sport participation reducing the injury rates with kids. So we know from a health and safety perspective, it's better. But I think one of the things I always used to talk about with multiple sport participation is that you learn how to work with different people. You let's say you have a cross country coach, then you have a basketball coach, it's a different person, then you have a track coach, it's a third different person, or you're a football player and you got a wrestling coach, then you got a baseball coach. They're all different, and you need to learn that, because when you get out in real life, you're going to be dealing with different personalities, and that first job, that first boss you get might not be like your high school track coach.
Right.
It might be somebody totally different that you've not experienced. You're going to have to deal with that. And I think because you participate in multiple sports, you learn how to deal with people. And as you get older, you start learning that really what life's about is relationships. You do your job and you work with people, but at the end of the day, it's about the relationships you develop and how you nurture those relationships and how you cultivate friendships and lifelong friendships, and that's how you survive, and that's how you progress. And I think that playing multiple sports, learning how different people coach, learning how different people discipline, learning a little bit more about yourself and the demands that you need to meet because you're in a different environment. I think all those things prepare you for life, because life throws a lot of different scenarios at you. How do you deal with your house burning down? Life-altering types of things. How do you deal with a death in the family? How do you deal with losing your job? How do you deal with those challenges in your life? And I think playing multiple sports helps that. It's not going to give you all those lessons. Hopefully you never experience any of that stuff when you're in school. But it helps you deal with adversity. And, one of the things I've talked about through this whole coronavirus is that one thing high school sports teaches you is resilience. You learn how to be resilient to adversity. This is adversity. People are losing their jobs right now. People are dying right now. This is true life adversity. And I think playing sports helps you learn how to deal with that. You're not going to win every time. And you learn that when you don't win, you have to get up, brush your pant legs off, and try again. I just watched the last episode of The Last Dance last night.
Oh,
Michael Jordan
did too.
And,
Yeah.
A guy even as fabulous as Michael Jordan was in his chosen sports, he got beat sometimes.
Right.
And he experienced defeat. But what he did with it was what was so interesting. He gets beat in the NBA Finals, and he's back in the gym the next day. He's so distraught for getting beat. He goes back to work. They say, I'll see you the next day. I'll see you tomorrow. He's talking to his agent. I'll see you tomorrow. That's what you learn from sports.
Right.
You learn how to get back on your feet. This right now, facing our world, is the ultimate game. It's the ultimate challenge. And so how are you going to fight it? How are you going to get back up on your feet? I've had close friends die from this. And it's tragic. It's awful. But you learn that you have to get back up on the horse and you got to go ride again. And that's the thing that I think sports teaches you. And I hope that's what participation in our programs does. I think multiple sports does it better than anybody because you have so many different people helping you.
Yeah. Do you think you see less and less with the push now for year-round basketball or year-round baseball? Or do you see less and less? Do you guys as an organization feel like you see less and less?
Unfortunately, I do, Emily. I see that the need to specialize for the drive for the elusive Division I scholarship is there, and it's placed there by non-school sponsored sport coaches and organizations that, if you do this and you do that, you're going to get exposure by these college coaches. I'll give you an interesting statistic. I was talking to a college coach friend of mine the other day. There are 1,000 Division I men's basketball players in the transfer portal right now. 1,000.
Wow.
Well, it's because everybody thinks they're all Division I players, and they're really not. Mm-hmm. And they're being told they are. And when they get there, they don't get as many minutes. They're not the star of the team like they were in high school. Mm-hmm. They're not the star of their travel team or their AAU team or whatever. And they're disillusioned.
Right.
And so they're going to go try to find a place where they go, and there's a disruption in their education. There's a disruption in their athletics. And I think that the drive for that specialization has not helped athletics. I don't personally think the level of play is much better.
Right. Doesn't it seem like it happens at such a young age?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've heard horror stories of coaches, school and non-school people, talking to kids saying, well, you need to focus on basketball. You need to focus on running. You need to focus on football if you want to go to college and play. Mm-hmm. Well, I go back to a lot of different folks, and I can think of some of my good friends. Mark Herman was 2 years younger than me, and we played Babe Ruth baseball together. Mm-hmm. That guy played football, he played baseball, he played basketball. And you know what? He played all three of those sports all through high school. No one told that guy he couldn't just play one sport. Now he goes to Purdue. He's second in the Heisman voting his senior year. Pretty good football player. Pretty good professional career. But he played basketball and he played baseball. Mm-hmm. Didn't hurt him a bit. Mm-hmm. And I think, and Mark's just one example of many kids. Scott Rowland comes to mind at Jasper. Baseball, basketball player. Great at both, great career as a baseball player. But you look at those kids and you find out that you can play multiple sports and still be good at the one sport you decide that you're going to be good at.
Right.
And it doesn't harm you. And I think you become more well-rounded. You become more diverse, and you become more worldly. You have better experiences from it. And I think all those, if you talk to any of those folks, male or female, they're going to tell you that the opportunity to play multiple sports was a positive for them, and it helps them in their life. But I see specialization, and frankly, I don't like it. Right. I don't like the idea of a kid not being able to hang up his football shoes after the last game and go in the gym and play basketball. And when you get beat in the tournament, or you win the tournament, now you go into the baseball game. You're going to go play baseball. And when baseball's done, it's back to football or whatever you do.
Right.
I grew up that way as a younger kid, and I loved when it was time to, when baseball season was over and that last baseball game in the summer was done. I couldn't wait to get to fall.
Right.
And then I couldn't wait for fall to be over because it was going to be basketball season.
Right.
Well, we've moved away from that in some places, and I think that's a sad thing for kids.
Yeah, I think that especially too, like you mentioned with injuries, it seems like more and more injuries.
Overuse.
Overuse. And I feel like I was talking to one of my college teammates who had a son who played college basketball, and she was talking about AAU tournaments, like, and through the summer, and that the kids are playing so many games that we both felt like what we were observing was like a devaluing of the game. So like now it's like, oh, there's another game. It'll just be another game. I don't have to play as hard as because there'll be another game. There'll be another game, and seeing that switch or that transformation of some players will show up on one day. So she was complaining because some players will show up on one day, some players will show up on another day. Nobody is ever showing up, not like physically, but like mentally on the same day because. They're like, there'll be another game tomorrow. And I remember when we were growing up, you were so excited when you have the opportunity for the game because you knew there may not be another game.
Right.
Right. And the number, she rattled off some.
Well, you made a big deal about game day.
Yeah.
I can remember coaching you. I remember telling kids, you're going to love game days. You're going to hate practice. Right. Practice is not fun. Right. Practice is not meant to be fun. Practice is to get better.
Right.
But if you practice hard, games are fun. Yeah. Because you've done everything to get ready for the game, and then you get to display what work you've put in in the gym, and then it's fun. That's the fun part, is competing. But if you know there's another game, so what?
So what? Yeah.
You know, okay.
Yeah.
Well, not so good today, but hey, there's a game tomorrow.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It was interesting to get her perspective.
Do you think
So-
you talked about the Division I scholarship opportunities? Do you think that sometimes I go back to an example? A guy I used to listen to the podcast I listened to. He played football at Colorado State, and they had a professional coach come in from the NFL and say how many people think they could make the NFL.
Right.
And everybody's hand goes up. But then he said, okay, everybody with these two guys sit down. That's
Right.
that's what's really going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that specialization sometimes gives false hope to people that if they put in, they do this, then they will get
there's
something
no
that
question.
may not exist. That opportunity may not be there anyway.
Well, there's no question. I think that coaches, whether they be school coaches or non-school coaches, will tell kids that. Kids tell their parents that. Coaches tell their parents that. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to focus on, let's say it's basketball. Let's focus on basketball because that's what's going to get you in a position to be exposed to coaches. And I tell kids, I say, if you're good enough,
Yeah.
they know who
They
you
know
are.
who you are.
Right.
Yeah,
They know
yeah.
who you are.
We say that
already.
all the time.
This
Yeah.
spring, that we didn't have a spring sports season, but every coach out there who was going to recruit a kid, they knew who that kid was already.
Yep.
They didn't have to run a step this spring or
Yep.
hit a ball this spring. They know who they are.
Right.
They
Yeah.
knew long ago, and they're still going to recruit those kids.
Right.
And I don't see that really is it really crystallizes for me the fact that just enjoy your experience. Don't focus on one thing. If you want to play multiple sports, you want to do multiple things, you're going to be a better student for it. You're going to be a better person for it. I get the opportunity to sit on a lot of scholarship committees, and you look at these resumes of these kids, and they're so involved in so many things.
So many things. Yeah.
Not just their athletics, but their leadership roles in their school. They're doing community service. They're involved in their church. They're doing so many different things that's the kind of individual that's going to become the next leader in the next generation. And it's just real interesting to watch that. And I just don't think focusing on one particular thing is that healthy. You need to have some diversity. And you need to be able to step away from it too. I can remember when I started being an athletic director, and you remember Rich Reasoner.
Oh yeah.
Rich was assistant principal, and he says, this is hard work, but we're not going to make you work 80 hours a day. You can go drown a worm once in a while if you want to. I've never forgotten that, and that's kind of what I do when I fish. I just drown worms. I'm not a real fisherman.
Right.
I like to fish, but I just drown worms. I don't get into the lures and casting and all that. I just like to sit there.
Yeah.
But you've got to have time to step away from it. And I think specialization teaches you just the opposite of that your whole life is consumed with it. And you miss a lot when you do that. And you miss some of the more enjoyable things that you could have experienced as you move through the chairs. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
fascinating.
So, what are you looking forward to now that you're stepping down and retiring? What's coming down the road for you?
Well, my wife and I have bought a home in northern Indiana, and we've actually moved there, and I'm doing some commuting and staying down here until my last day is July 31st. Nobody's counting, but it's only 78 days away. But we're gonna travel some. We hope to travel. We also have a home in Florida. We're going to spend our winters in Florida. We're very fortunate. And I'm going to try to get my golf game back in some kind of order. Every year I kind of gain a half a stroke on my handicap, and I kind of like to reverse that trend a little bit. I know as you get older you don't play as well, but I'd like to, get back to where I can at least play a little under bogey golf. And then, I'm on 3 boards. I'll stay on 3. I'm on about 6 boards right now. And I'll go off of about half of them. But I'm going to stay on the other ones. I'm on the college football playoff board. The college football playoff championship is in Indianapolis in 22. So I'm on that board, and I enjoy that work. Our foundation at the IHSAA, I'm going to stay on that. And then I'm on a national board that facilitates international educational travel. When exchange students come, they come through a foreign exchange program. There's a group that oversees that work. And I sit on their board, and I've got another year on that. And so I'm going to stay on some boards and I'm on the Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation in Indianapolis, which is a great group of thinkers that come together and talk about Indianapolis Sports Leadership 2.0. What's that going to look like? We started years ago with Mayor Hudnut and Mayor Lugar with building facilities and becoming the amateur sports capital of the world.
Right.
Well, now what's the next wave of that? And I sit on a group that thinks about that and plans for that, and it's a really interesting, fun conversation and interesting work. And I'm going to stay in that group, and I'll have more time to dedicate to that. And so I'm going to stay busy. I'm going to have my hand in a little bit, but
Good.
I'm not going to miss the day-to-day, and I'm not going to miss various all the different meetings and that type of thing. But I'll miss the championships. I'll miss the relationships. But I'll be able to come back, come and go as I'd like, and I'll see some things. And so I'm looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to, like I said, getting to travel a little bit and see some things we haven't seen. And hopefully this virus will find a vaccine, and we'll be safe enough to get out and get around the country and around the world and do some fun things.
Do some fun things, absolutely.
We have a few comments from the chat here.
Yeah.
Patrick Warner says hello.
Okay. Hey, Pat.
Grandmom says, so interesting. Hope all the grandchildren are listening. Granddad said, great interview.
Okay.
And Granddad also said, now you are retiring. Can All-Star set you up with a puppy?
We had a little dog years ago, a little Opso, Murphy, and he passed away. But we travel so much.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not fair to the dog. So we named our boat after our dog. So we have a boat called the Murphy Boy.
Oh, that's
That's
cool.
how we remember our dog.
Oh, that's clever. I like it.
cool.
I like it a lot. Well, we would like to thank you for being here today. One of the things we always ask our guests, you want to ask the question? But yeah,
Sure.
because you always ask it better than me. So.
If you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell them?
If I could talk to my 20-year-old self, I would talk to that young man, and I would say, be a little more studious. Take your academics a little more serious. Be a little more diverse. And when I was 20 years old, I was a distance runner. That's about the only thing I could think about was being a good distance runner. And I went to college. I had a great opportunity. I wish I'd have been a little more diverse. I think I'd, financially be a little smarter. Mm-hmm. My dad told me something years ago, and it took me a long time to figure it out. But he said, when you get into your first job, you need to pay yourself first. And I never really understood what that really meant. But what he was trying to do was say, you're a bill just like your electric bill and your mortgage. So when you get to be my age and you're getting ready to retire, you'll have something to retire on. Mm-hmm. I wish I could tell my 20-year-old self, save a little more, be a little more studious, be a little more diverse, invest more in relationships, and be kinder. And if I could tell my 20-year-old self that, maybe that would have been a little better path along the way. But I feel blessed. I feel good about where we've been and where we're going. So I want to thank you for the opportunity of visiting with you. It's been so many years. And,
yeah.
And I'm so proud of you and your clinic and your family, and that this is the reward you get from coaching.
Yeah.
You can look in your scrapbook and you can see a medal or you can see a ribbon. You can look at your trophy case and you can see a trophy. But as an educator, the real reward in education is to see how your students have done.
Yeah.
And to see what you've done with your business and your family. And that is a true reward for me. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
for being here.
Like I said, I think there's, you have certain, like you were talking about your coaches when you were growing up and those people that influenced you, and you just had such a profound influence on how I viewed hardship, success, and what I needed to do to get from point A to point B. And without all of those lessons when I was younger, I know that I wouldn't be where I'm at. So thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for all your influence. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
We'll close it out with 5 Boys in a Business. We'll see you next time.
Do you want to give him his gift bag?
Oh, yes, I do. Thanks, Harrison. Here's a little gift
A
from
gift
us.
bag. Outstanding.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I don't know if you're a sock man, but
Oh, I
these
love
are
'em. Oh,
All-Star
yeah.
socks, and
Yeah.
then just a little thank you note.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Richie. Appreciate
And
it. Harrison, thank you. Running the board over there.
running the board. That's
Hard
right.
work.
Yeah, that's right. He keeps us straight. That's right. That's for sure.
All right.
All right. Well, we will see you next time on 5 Boys in a Business. I'm Emily King,
I'm Richie King.
and this is Bobby Cox. Thanks for joining us.
We're out.